I'm with the epidemiology department with healthcare services. So this is a brief explanation on the changes that have been made to the COVID-19 case definition. So this image here will show you the current case definition. We did bring printouts if you guys would like those, or if it's, yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Ashley.
So currently, a confirmed case of COVID-19 was considered confirmed if there was a positive PCR lab result for COVID-19. Meaning if they got the swab testing done and it came back positive, that would be what we counted as a case towards COVID-19. If you didn't have lab results, if you just had symptoms, we could not count you as a case. So regardless of the contact you may have had with a confirmed case or symptoms, if there was no testing, you were not counted as a case. So in this image, we have the confirmed case and their possible contacts. And the total cases out of this is only one. And then if we go to the next page, the new case definition. So for confirmed case, it stays the same. You still just need PCR. But now they've added a probable case definition. So that still gets counted towards the case count. It's different. It's not confirmed. It's probable, but it's still a case. Meaning if you use another testing method, not PCR, and if you have close contact with a confirmed or probable case, and if you did that lab work that was not a PCR, you could be considered a case with or without symptoms. They also updated the definition for deaths related to COVID-19. Previously, prior to this definition, it was only if you had a positive PCR result that you would be counted as someone who died related to COVID-19. Now that lab testing is no longer required to be counted towards that. So that's just the language for the definition, and this next slide, the new probable case definition. So
Can I just ask a quick question? So back on the previous page, the new probable case definition with FDA-approved positive lab with or without symptoms, do you also have to have the positive lab along with close contact, or is the close contact with confirmed or probable cases a separate identifying thing?
So I'll explain this further.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
No. It's just an overview, gets kind of confusing. So this is the different options that we have for probable case definition. So if you do the FDA-approved testing, which right now is serology, looking for antibodies, IgG, IgM, you have to have the clinical criteria. And if you don't have that, and then you have the EpiLink, then you could still be counted as a case. So if we look at the yellow box here, that's the approved testing, right? If yellow, you have the test, and then you have any of the blue, you're a probable case. If you're yellow and you have any other close contact, which doesn't mean you're sick, you're a probable case. And then if you don't do any of that lab work, and then you get sick and you were a contact of a case, you are then counted as a probable case. So the clinical criteria that they have defined is at least 2 symptoms of fever, subjective or measured, chills, rigors, myalgia, headache, sore throat, new smell and taste disorders, 2 of those, or 1 of cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, or evidence of pneumonia without an alternative diagnosis and severe respiratory distress. So there's many ors and then there's many ands. So in order to be counted as, to see if you meet the EpiLink definition, you have to be a close contact of someone who's a confirmed case of COVID-19 or a probable case, or you came to a location where it's endemic. Right now, Texas has stated that they are considering the state as an endemic area. So that means if I just went and got serology testing done with no symptoms and I was positive, whether it's saying that recent infection or current infection, my new antibodies, or it's like I've had them for a while, I would be counted as a probable case. So basically, these 3 boxes, you can be yellow and blue without green to be counted as probable, yellow and green without the blue, and then blue and green without the yellow. But for the blue and green, if you had contact, that has to be within 14 days. So let's say activity dies down, slows down, and we're not considered endemic. Then we need that 14-day. But right now, that 14-day doesn't matter. Moving forward, it may, when activity slows down. So at the end of this definition, there are 15 different options on how you could be classified as a probable case.
Before we go into from the 15, you're talking about the expansions?
Yeah.
Is that what you're about to go into, the probable expansions? Or are you
So-
talking about just the variables here?
These variables, there's
Okay.
15 ways to...
Yeah, let's go into that then, and then we'll ask questions.
Okay, so that same scenario, a little bit more extended. Now, if we look at it with the new probable case definition, where some individuals had the FDA-approved testing of IgM, IgG, some individuals just had contact with someone who is classified as a COVID case, whether they are confirmed or probable. So at the end of this, based on this diagram and what they report, there's a total of 17 cases now. One is still only confirmed because that was that original index case, who then had all these contacts underneath in orange. And all the rest of them became probable, but they are still considered a case. So.
Very good, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, just to recap, this has the potential to be a very significant event for us here in Texas and here in Collin County, as the state now has elected to adopt this new probable definition. And if you'll go back one, Mr. Billiou, as it's displayed there on the chart there, the yellow box, the blue boxes, and the green boxes. If you have any 2 of those 3 colors, then you will meet the definition of probable. And in the yellow, you even have a positive IgG, IgM, or AG test, any of the antibody tests, then that satisfies that. And then the blue, the different clinical criteria to satisfy the blue boxes. And then in green, the epidemiological linkage criteria to satisfy the green boxes. What's remarkable is if you were to talk about all of the options there to meet those different boxes, perhaps the lowest hanging definition or combination is one that satisfies the epidemiological linkage by residing in any area where there's sustained ongoing community transmission. And as Aisha explained, that right now Texas is considered an endemic region. So all of the residents of Collin County already satisfy the green boxes. By virtue of the fact that they live in Collin County, they already satisfy the green. Now they only have to satisfy one of the blue boxes or one of the orange-yellow boxes, and they will be considered probable. If you look at the blue boxes, now, again, we talked about the orange-yellow boxes. That's a test, an antibody test. But if you look at just the blue boxes, if someone has 2 minor symptoms or 1 major symptom, that qualifies. So 2 minor symptoms, fever, headache, sore throat, chills. And fever, by the way, can either be measured fever or subjective fever. They just feel like they've got a fever. If you have a subjective fever and you have a headache and you live in Collin County, you now meet the qualifications to be a probable COVID patient. It is remarkable how low the standard is now. Mm-hmm. If you have one of the major symptoms, you have a cough or you have shortness of breath, and you live in Collin County, then you can satisfy the definition for a probable COVID case. So I don't think it can be overstated here that how much this could be taken out of context and could be giving a false narrative to our citizens and to our community. I'm not saying that we're going to see the numbers jump, but I'm very concerned that we absolutely could see the numbers jump very rapidly in a way that actually is not indicative of what we're seeing here in the community in the public health department. And so I fear that this is coming at a time when we're just now starting to reopen, and if the numbers jump in a false way, it's going to start to be very concerning to our citizens that we're actually going backwards. And so we've talked about this all this last week with the health department team, that the state has assured us that they're going to be reporting positive confirmed tests and probable tests, probable cases and confirmed cases separately. So we take them on their word on that. Then from now on, they're going to be separating those into two categories as they report how many COVID infections they have. And the probable cases, because we won't know for any particular probable case whether or not they actually had a test and had the orange yellow box, or whether they did in fact meet the standard that I just talked about, the chills and a fever, and they live in Collin County. We won't know what boxes they satisfied. So the probable cases could be highly overstated and less reliable, certainly, than having an actual test. And then, so, Mr. Billy, if you'll go forward one slide. I think this is critical here, and you talked about this, and thank you for that. This is the potential impact for us, just as one example of showing what could happen. The yellow person there is the only one on the board who has a positive PCR test. It's the only one that's tested positive with a true swab test for COVID-19. All of the orange boxes are coworkers and family members and neighbors and friends, folks that have had some kind of contact with the confirmed case. And as long as they can satisfy, and again, they all satisfy the green box. So as long as they can satisfy one of the blue boxes or the orange box, then they are all considered a probable confirmed case. So whereas right now, all of our resources in the public health department go towards tracking, reporting, and then contact tracing the confirmed cases and the PUMs, which is represented by one individual on this chart, that could be expanded 16-fold here on this one chart, just as an example of how it could happen. Now that could be overstating it. It could only expand 10-fold or 5-fold, but we have the potential to see a remarkable expansion of those that are considered COVID positive. And if you're just doing that for reporting, well, it's not reliable, but if it's just on paper, then we all can just commiserate about how unreliable it is. However, we would have to now spend resources to do contact tracing for all of those folks on there that are represented in orange, and call them every day to find out how they're doing, and then wait the 10 to 14 days before we can mark them as recovered probable cases. So it represents a remarkable expansion on resources for local public health departments.